He's the second in command, and I guess 2 episodes in a row he's had a speaking line.
Yeah, so did I do that? Maybe he'll say that eventually. I don't think so, though. Welcome back, everyone, to episode 3 of Skeleton Crew. I don't think there's any titles here, right? It's just, we just go straight to the episode, right? There's no title card?
In the show, there's no title card, but on Disney Plus, when you click into an episode, there's titles on the episodes. But this one was something like it's an astrological problem or something.
Oh, okay.
Or astrologistical problem, or I don't know.
Which is what the owl lady says, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I've only been seeing great things about the show, seemingly telling us that we are correct in our thoughts. The show is good. It does have some faults, and I think maybe we'll talk about some of those. I don't know if I don't have many, but I have some things I'm just like, well, they kind of got out of that situation a little too easy. But anyway, Sean, what is the word of the day today for you and your owl friend?
I had a couple of, again, I come up with a couple, and I feel this pressure of it needs to be funny, but it needs to be relevant to the episode. And with this one, I'm going with something that I feel like was maybe one of the best lines in the episode, which was, I. You don't even know what I'm talking about, do you?
I?
What?
Oh, yes,
What?
when Smee
Oh,
says
yeah.
it. Yes, SMEE, SM33, whatever.
The whole interaction with Smee and Jude Law's character right then, when he like raises up a few inches, then comes back down, and he says, they be from somewhere, and then walks out of the room, and then bizarrely walks back in and says it again. I was cracking up. Like, this is my kind of humor. We need more of this. We need more of this in Star Wars. Yeah.
My word of the week is goons.
Oh.
Which I don't feel like the kids knew that was a general term for enemies. Because he's like, oh, it's the Republic goons or whoever, whatever. And then later on, I think it was Neil who was like, it's the goons! Like, he just, like, referred to them as, like, a proper name. Anyway, had me laughing.
The other word of the week that I was going to say was going to be CPAP. Because Neil snores in the episode. And I'm like, someone get him a CPAP machine.
Yeah, but he's
got sleep
like
apnea.
Elephant.
Overall, I felt like, obviously last week I was mostly positive over the first 2 episodes, but my word of the week last week was hesitant because I felt like there have been other Disney Plus Star Wars shows that have started out strong and then not ended strong. And so I just was cautiously optimistic of, I hope it continues to have an upward trajectory and continue to be fun and exciting and a great show. And last week I was mostly concerned that we were back to like a 24-minute episode or whatever it was. After you take the credits out of it, the runtime isn't that long. And so I was excited that this week it was back up to a longer episode. I felt like the episode had time to breathe, and there were, we could get some more character interactions and developments, and the pacing was good. I thought this was a fantastic episode. I really liked it. I really, really liked it. And what I think is going to be the glue that holds this show together, Jude Law. Star Wars needs to do this more. I think the Acolyte
suffered
hard from the.
I think I know where you're going from this. There's no tentpole.
Yes, like you need some sort of star power, and not star power because of oh, we want a famous person in it, but Star Power because the famous person usually is because they're good at acting.
Yeah.
They're experienced. They have the chops to bring a character to life in a convincing way. And immediately, we obviously see more of Jude Law in this episode than any of the previous two episodes. And I feel like I loved his character. I loved his character. I think his character is subtle. His chemistry with the kids is good. His skepticism of, not skepticism is not the right word, but his kind of shadiness with SM-33, his kind of subtle deception and lying to the kids, but also like it doesn't feel nefarious. It doesn't feel like he wants to hurt the kids. It's just like he has his own ulterior motives. I like that. I like the character.
I think that's a great point. I mean, Acolyte, we had what's her face in the first episode, then immediately died. Well, I mean, they brought her back for flashback scenes, but she was a stoic Jedi who was in it just for a little bit. She wasn't a recurring character, right?
And we had Squid Game guy.
True, yes.
So we had Manny.
Ahsoka, we didn't have anyone until the very end with Thrawn, really.
Yeah.
And then once we had Thrawn, we're like, okay, now they brought in someone,
But anyway, so I feel like really solid episode. What else? The other thing I liked about the episode was so many times in previous Star Wars shows, I feel like every episode introduced more and more questions without ever making us feel like we were making progress on answering anything in the show. And I can't remember specifics, but I feel like on multiple shows that we have done reviews of, we're getting to like the second to last episode or last episode, and we're like, how are they going to wrap this up? Because they've introduced way too many questions, and now they don't have enough time to actually answer these. And so I feel like this was a good episode of, they didn't reveal everything. There's still a lot of season left, but they gave enough progress to answer some things about, okay, Jude Law's character, is he really a Jedi? Is he not a Jedi? I'm still curious. Okay, it seems like he's not a Jedi. How is he doing his little parlor tricks? Does he actually have?
I never said I wasn't.
Yeah,
it's like I never said I was.
Right. We find out a little bit more about At-Aten. We're like, it's one of the jewels of the Old Republic. It's one of the a forgotten hidden planet. I think we don't know everything yet.
It's a great point because so much I feel like it's just like info dumping the last two episodes, where it's just like now all these Acolyte. Remember how we were like, well, what actually happened on that planet with the fire? And we had to wait to the very, very end. And we're like, okay, well, that's kind of dumb,
Yes.
This is like, oh, you want to know about the planet? Here's just a little bit about the planet. We're not going to save it for episode 7 and be like, big flashback. Now we're going to show you everything you need to know about At-Aten. And, it's just like, oh, it was part of 9 planets in the Old Republic that were the jewels of the Old Republic. 8 of them were destroyed. I don't know if I'm getting that number right, but all but 1 was destroyed.
Yeah.
And it's been hidden away, and it's doing some great work. Who knows what that great work is? And that's kind of like, okay, now we know about the planet. Now we can figure out what's next, Yeah.
And I kind of like that the kids are on that journey too of figuring out, okay, so what's
what do our parents do? Yeah. They work with money, right?
All of our parents are analysts. What are they analyzing? Like, what's this treasure? And they look down at their Old Republic credits that are like mint condition credits that clearly are very valuable. And they're like, oh, what is the eternal treasure and the great work happening on At-Aten?
You know what I liked about this episode too? And I feel like the other episodes were also this way. This is a genuinely fun and funny show. it's not taking itself so seriously,
Yes.
which for once I very much appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And it's to me, it's just more of it shouldn't be that impressive to just get a well-crafted story, and yet for our track record with Star Wars, it's like it's so impressive that this is just it's just a well-crafted story and TV series so far.
Yeah.
Where you feel like there's moments of lightheartedness and humor, there's elements of mystery, it's fun, there's fun action, there's, they're building more lore and mythology within Star Wars with the whole planets that have been lost and things like that, Jewel of the Old Republic. So I feel like it's just like checking all the boxes of this is how you do it. This is how you tell a Star Wars story.
Yeah. And I'm not saying every Star Wars show should be like the super fun, funny show. Because, like, obviously Andor needs to be a drama and a political thriller, But, like, Acolyte and some of those other shows just felt so, like, straight and narrow. It was like, okay, well, there's no, like... And the whole point of watching it was to find out this mystery. And then once we found out the mystery, we're like, oh, okay. Oh, but there's Plagueis. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, yeah, we like Plagueis,
Yeah.
And even anyway, the action scenes, even like where he's like flying that ship, but he has to get into the little pod over to the side where that little creature resides, and that's what he's flying from. Like, played it as comedy. Like, that was a funny little, like, obviously he's trying to escape, he's getting shot at, but it's still like, oh, we got to get in the little hutch,
Yeah.
It was funny.
But, it kind of almost reminded me, speaking of, pirates and things like that, it kind of reminded me of like a Pirates of the Caribbean type, like the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie that had a lot of like elements of humor that Johnny Depp was bringing to Jack Sparrow.
Totally.
But ultimately, it kind of also worked as this pirate epic.
Yeah, it's an epic movie, but in the moment, like when they're getting shot at, you're like, oh, he's kind of like dancing around. You're like, oh, that's kind of funny, It's kind of a fun way to play the character. Totally. Or like, what was he when he was trying to get away? He's like, that's a strong fuel line. Like that line, I was just like laughing at. I was like, when was the last time I've like actually laughed at a Star Wars movie or show?
Because it's like it's not going to plan type of thing. It's like this was supposed to go differently in my mind. Yeah. But I also thought it was interesting, kind of the dynamic of them getting off the planet, the spaceport, the pirate port of. Because I remember last week I said, well, if he really has the Force and can get the key out, like why is he still in the cell? And he answered that in the first couple minutes of the episode, saying, why would I break out if I don't have a ship? And
the kids are like, oh yeah, he's got a point. Like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense.
But even I think you see I feel like it is interesting that you saw that, the girls from the get-go very skeptical of him, whereas
the boys were so behind him. Totally.
Yeah. Wim is like telling Neil, like, he knew that there was a guy coming because he can sense him with the Force or whatever, just like giving him the lore of the Jedi, like, yeah, I know what Jedi skills. And Jude Law totally playing into it, like, you know much of the Force, like, shut up. But it was just so good because it's like he's playing this character like a pirate would, of like, I'll let them believe that I'm a Jedi if it helps me like reach the ends that I have in mind. But I thought it was interesting, the whole, like, when they get onto the ship and the kids are like, you have to go back for the droid. I was surprised that Jude Law was like, okay, I will. But I'm like, why would, like, he's got the ship at that point. If he really was this, pirate that's just like looking to get out of there, why is he going back for the droid? But
yeah, I was thinking
I'm glad they did, because I like the droid.
I was thinking, are they really going to have him go back? Like, because at that point he's on the ship, he can go to his owl friend, and then he can be like, hey, some kids told me about and like, he doesn't even need the kids anymore, I feel like, but maybe he still does. One thing I thought was interesting, it kind of bugged me just a bit, was how easy it was for them to get to the ship and how they kind of glossed over it. But then kind of reading what other people have been saying, as well as what they said in the show, where KB is like, that was too, like, she even like calls it out, like, that was too easy. So hopefully they'll answer that and be like, they planned it, they saw them escaping, they're like, well, let's follow them, to their planet, sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like them getting to the ship, it was like super easy. Um, but then again, I'm thinking to myself, is the whole port, is that entire spaceport all the old crew that mutinied against him, or is it just the crew is part of the larger population there?
Yeah, I think just a small portion.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I could see you could get around and blend in with the crowd and whatever. Except those kids to me were more the dead giveaway than Jude Law. Like I wouldn't expect people to be like, hey, that's Captain Silvo or whatever, and he escaped from the brig. But it's like the elephant kid is walking around again. Didn't we just throw them in prison like an hour ago?
Yeah.
How did they get out?
No
but
bother.
but I thought, I mean, they glossed over that, and then yeah, Fern or KB or somebody was like, that was too easy. But then they really glossed over how did Silvo get the
Slow as
droid that he
molasses.
was barely able to. He looked like Han Solo with coaxium on freaking the spice mines at Kessel,
Yeah.
pushing that thing half a mile an hour, and then fade to black. And when we cut back, he's already flying the ship thing, like, and he's being pursued by other ships. And I'm like, how did that happen?
I mean, is that a fault of the show, or is that just kind of like clever writing where they're just like, you just need to know he got away from it,
Yeah, and that's what I ultimately think it is. Obviously, it's that well, it could play multiple ways. It could play as we didn't see it because the theory you were kind of alluding to,
something
it's all a
happened.
setup.
Yeah.
But if that was the case, then the fuel line thing must have been maybe an accident. Maybe he was supposed to be able to break away from the fuel line. He's like, wow, that's a strong fuel line. And then it like destroys part of the port. And maybe they're like, that was not how we rehearsed it. That wasn't how we rehearsed it, people. But again, I don't think I would be surprised if that's the actual story that it's all been a setup, because I feel like that'd be really elaborate. Like, how would they know that those kids were coming and put him in the jail cell and all that kind of thing? But maybe that is the story.
Remember last week you were also, and I was all confused of like, why'd they throw the kids in jail in the first place? They're like, let them cool down for a bit in the brig. I was like, what? Cool down for a bit? Like,
yeah,
what does that mean?
Yeah, unless they heard him talking about being from Ad-Atten, and then they're like, hey, these kids say they're from Ad-Atten, put him in the cell with Captain Silvo, and he'll deceive them to take him to Ad-Atten. I don't know.
What did Owl Lady call him? She called him Jack Danger or something? Jack Powers? What was his name?
That was Crimson Jack.
Crimson, that's what it was. Crimson Jack.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is when he was getting SM-33 and the old crewmate came in, and it seemed like for a second I thought the guy was going to be like loyal to Silvo, like, hey, I didn't want to mutiny against you, whatever. But then he's not even out of the room, and that guy's like, maybe I should call the guards. And then it cuts away, and the next time we see him, he's flying the plane.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of was, maybe they're like, this is a kid's show, so we're not going to do that. But I was waiting for Jude Law to pull an Andor and just shoot the guy.
Yeah.
And be like, no loose ends here, no witnesses. Which I feel like would have maybe tipped the scales too much to show like, okay, he's like a cutthroat pirate type.
I think we're supposed to like him. We're supposed to like him,
I think they're very much playing him as like kind of like a Jack Sparrow, which is he is a pirate, but he's not cutthroat, and he kind of has a strange code of ethics and moral code that he follows.
We'll gloss over all the actual pirate stuff and just make him funny,
Right.
And the kids will like him, and he'll start liking the kids.
Right. But yeah, I felt like when they were in hyperspace to go to the Owl Lady, really, I thought really good character development for the characters. You get a little bit of this Jude Law sentiment of he doesn't like droids. It's kind of like Mando,
Hmm.
um, where he's like eating the food and then he hands it to the droid and he's like, "Droid, clean this up." And
Clean that
he
up.
like looks at it and like hits the thing off the table. I thought that was funny.
Go check the pot. There's more.
Yeah. Yeah. So also like kind of being nice to the kids and then telling them they should sleep, but like KB like isn't gonna fall asleep. She has her little visor on, and it's like, "Are you awake or are you asleep? Well, what's going on right now?" And he's like, "Don't you sleep?" And she lifts it up, and but it's like he's not trying to take advantage of them per se in that moment, but she's like distrusting of him. Anyway, I
Yeah.
just felt like it was really well done. The character interactions and the characters are coming into their own. Everybody kind of has a little role.
Well, and then that one girl, I can't remember her name right now. She she's like, I'm not even. She's like, you need to go to bed. I'm not even tired. And then smash cuts to her.
Which is just so classic. Every kid ever. I'm not even
Yes.
tired. Like you're overtired.
Put
You
your
don't
head
even know
down and
how
fall
tired
asleep.
you are.
Yeah, that's right.
But
I really like the next scene where we go to this moon planet of a gas giant. We get to meet his. I mean, she's a collector of things from tens of thousands of worlds around the galaxy, and it's just a very fun. I mean, she's a fun character. She is obviously stalling for time, and it's funny how like I didn't catch on to it until he called it out. I'm like, oh, that's right, yeah, she is stalling, because she does say some things like, "Well, we need to run that again, or we must be thorough," and waiting for the X-wings to come and.
well, and I think even I kind of read that scene as her plan was to stall, but then she kind of got carried away and excited about what she was finding, and then she was like, "Oh," and then she's like, "Oh, wait, hold on, pull it, rein it back in. I gotta stall." Um, but I think that goes back to the question you asked earlier of why does he need the kids? That scene kind of showed why they need because their memories or their descriptions of the planet are the key to help her whittle down
But
where the
all they
planet
said
is.
was there's like a green gas in the atmosphere, and she's like, "Oh, that narrows it down to 10,000 worlds."
Right. Well, it narrows it down to 10,000 worlds. I thought before the gases, or maybe not. I don't remember. But um, I thought it was interesting some of the conversations that give us more insight into AT-AT and the kids on that planet that they don't really know what's going on. In that, I think Neil says, "Oh yeah, well we've heard of like Alderaan and Coruscant," and
Oh
they're like
yeah,
all like Alderaan,
Alderaan.
like whatever. I guess you didn't hear about like what happened in the war, and they're like, "What war?" So it kind of shows that yeah, they are in some like alternate timeline dimension like Stepford community that has no idea what's happening on the outside in the galaxy.
Yeah, Truman Show.
Yes, Truman Show, exactly. And even to the point where I'm like, do the adults on AT-AT know, or does like that little scene of the parents with the safety droids, they're like also clueless
I
about
bet you
what's
they have
going
no
on.
idea. They probably are just
They've been
mindless
raised on
grunt
that planet.
workers. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like that scene from the desk from Andor where they're building that little tiny piece of one little part of the Death Star and they don't know anything else, and that's what they're doing. I mean, at and people might be doing the same thing, just like doing something that they've been told to do, and they're just keep doing it for 10,000 years.
yeah. The great work. And I think it's funny that Fern's mom, who's clearly like a, what was her title? She was like a supervisor or a regent or something.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember. Well, not supervisor because that's the one they keep talking about, but she was in that first episode of like visiting the school as some sort of dignitary, and she's like so drinking the Kool-Aid that she's like, don't worry, like where I will request a an audience with the supervisor. Like she thinks her status is going to get them some answers, and it's like we as the audience know, no, like you are just a cog in this massive cover-up thing that's happening.
Mm.
Like you don't actually know what's going on. Those four kids now know more about the galaxy than anyone on your planet other than whoever the supervisor or the person is that's keeping the secret from everyone.
Yeah. Because even the security droid is like, the kids left the planet. They're not allowed to, so we're not going to pursue them. We're not going to look for them anymore. It's just like, oh, dang. Just like, that's it.
Yeah.
So now the parents need to join forces and figure out what's going on.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's still a lot of interesting kind of mystery left to uncover. Obviously, the big one being, can they make it back to At-Aten? What's the story behind At-Aten? Like, what's the mystery there in terms of the great work and what they're working on? And
how does it play into a larger Star Wars story, or is it just kind of very insular into,
yeah. Who is, I guess, who is Jude Law and how is he using the Force, if he is using the Force, or if he's not, how's he doing it? I thought it was funny that the kids were like, there's tons of ways he could fake that. And Wim's like, name one, and is like, magnets, strings, mirrors, like just like I can name 50. But it's like it's so good because each of the kids is like it's their own character development, and Wim, I feel like is that his name, Wim?
Mm-hmm.
Just so badly wants to believe in the Jedi and in those stories that he's been reading, at home. And he's just like craving for Jude Law to be the personification of those stories that he's been reading. Whereas like Fern and KB are like, obviously he's not.
Why are we so with this guy?
There's something fishy here. And yeah, KB being like, we should definitely leave without him. Like we need to leave. But then KB was kind of on the fence too, because she was like, well, we do need help. Like, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, we are kids.
Yeah. And then Neil's just along for the ride.
Hey, he's the best friend.
That's right.
Well, sounds like we love it. Sounds like we're enjoying it.
The other question I have too is SM-33. Are we going to figure out how was that ship even on At-Aten and underground for how long was it there, and what's the story there? Whose ship was that?
Yeah, maybe. I guess that is a mystery.
Maybe it's like the first people that ever made it to At-Aten were on that ship, and then 10,000 years ago, and they built up a civilization, and now SM-33 is like.
But SM-33 didn't even know his ship was on At-Aten.
Yeah, that's right.
Even when the kids tell him, he's kind of like, At-Aten? That I don't have records of that,
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. Overall, I thought it was a really solid episode. I'm excited to see where this goes. And now that the kids in Jude Law have that golden card, I don't think that card was supposed to make us believe that those are the coordinates to At-Aten, but maybe it's like a short list of where it could be type of thing, and how they're going to go search out the different options.
Well, I'm enjoying it. Do you have anything else you want to say about this episode before we wrap it up?
No, I do not.
Okay, well, let us know what you are thinking so far of Skeleton Crew. Next week, it again drops on Tuesday. It's going to be dropping every Tuesday up until middle of January. So we have 5 more episodes still to go. And let us know what you think. Until next time, this is The Way.
And we're going to get back to the Bacta, baby.
Back to the Bacta. Okay, see ya.
All right, bye.